marv1repatatime.net with the exercise tutorial for the king of all exercises, the barbell back squat. As with all of our exercise tutorial family, I highly recommend you watch me go over the setup, the coaching points, the mental cues, tip tricks, whatever you want to call them. And then with me in your ear, so to speak, I will coach you through your first few warm-up or working sets until you feel confident and competent on doing them on your own. Now, for this video, I'm going to be doing it with the bar on my back outside of my squat rack, which is behind me. So whenever you're doing barbell back squats, I want you to do it inside the squat rack, meaning the bar would be on the other side of this post, so I'm inside my little cage. Use the safety bars, that way, heaven forbid you have to ditch it. The barbell doesn't have to go far away, and you're going to keep yourself nice and safe. So you always want to be putting the weight on, stepping back, doing your squats, and then stepping forward to re-rack the weight. The exact opposite of what I'm doing for this video, but I figured we get a lot better and cleaner camera angles to show all of the coaching points and the finer details of this lift. The first thing we're going to talk about is squat depth and exactly how far do you go. Everybody will have their own squat depth, and I always want it to go as deep as possible based on the range of motion, which is why it's extremely important to do your daily mobility drills and work on your flexibility, and it's not something that we could totally neglect. The whole thing about squatting and how low do you go, we don't necessarily have to do, they're called ass-to-grass squats. We need to go as deep as we can based on what our hamstrings and hips allow us to do. So, the thing that we don't want is to have what's known as butt wink, when your tailbone curls underneath you, and then that's what puts you in a risky position because there's a lot of weight potentially on your spinal column, and that is what gives us the disc issues that squats kind of get a bad rap for if you don't know what you're doing or if you're going way too low based on your mobility. So on the side angle, you can see I have my low back is going to be arched, and then as I squat down, it's naturally going to curl a little bit. Right here, I'm still good. Right there, if you can see how my tailbone is curling from here to there, it's curling underneath. So here, still good. There, it's curling underneath. So that's going to be my range of motion. Now, of course, your hips are going to start to curl a little bit underneath you, but because we're starting out with this exaggerated arch, even as they start to curl down, I'm still at neutral. It's not until it really, my pelvis really tips forward. That's when I get the issue, right? My pelvis tips backwards, so my seat bones are now facing forward, and that's what we don't want. So that's the depth, and it's going to be different for every person. So please, please, please do not neglect your mobility, and make sure you're doing plenty of warm-up stuff before you start to squat. Do not neglect the warm-up. So people make this mistake before I get started. I'm getting antsy to get the bar on my back. A lot of people so focus on their legs that they don't set up properly and keep their back nice and flexed, strong, and preventing them from folding over. So it's almost a similar idea to shoulder packing. We want to have our shoulder blades retracted position and then flexing our back to keep us nice and strong. If you don't flex your back, you're going to start to the weight's going to kind of fold you over. You're going to lose your rigidity of your spine. So that's why it's super important to flex your back. So here's a picture of me, real quick, or video demonstration, I should say, of me getting my shoulder blades in position. And then that's what I'm going to do the entire time while I'm squatting. So it'll look something like this, and I'm going to give you a coaching point or a mental cue to always help make sure your back is nice and flexed. So when we come up to the bar, you figure out, you're going to have your assigned width for your hands. So when I come in, now just like with that video of me shirtless, I'm locking my shoulder blades. I like to give it a little shimmy, kind of lock it in, because as I put my shoulder blades are retracted, I'm placing that little shelf on my trap muscle for the bar to rest. And then I come up, picture squeezing an orange between your armpits the entire time. By doing that, you do it even sitting still. This little movement right here, I'm exaggerating my elbows, but by squeezing the orange in my armpits, now my lats are going to be fired and contracting the entire time, which makes it a lot easier to keep your back nice and rigid. So when we come out, the breathing is as follows. You take a big gulp in, squat down, drive up, breathe out. Big gulp in, squat down, drive up, breathe out. So every rep, I don't want you taking a breath in. As you're coming down, I want a big breath in, brace your core, give yourself your own personal weightlifting belt, which is the proper way to do it, with air in your diaphragm, and then squat and then stand up. So I like to picture eating the air, so down, drive up, and spread. So we have all that taken care of. What else is there important to do? We need to be breaking at the knees and the hips at the same time. So my knees and hips are bending together and they're rising up together. As you go a little heavy, or if you get too far on the balls of your feet, your hips will want to come up before your knees. We don't want that. So if you're going too heavy, you're getting fatigued, your squat's going to look something like this, especially from the side view. You're going to come down and then your hips are going to rise before your knees do. You're going too heavy or you're getting too fatigued. Really need to focus on that. So you're really breaking at the knees and the hips, and you're standing back up at the same time. Last but not least, as you stand up out of the hole, I want you to focus on driving up through your heels and spreading the floor with your feet. So I'm purposely shaking my knees. So if you have really weak quads, you're not used to squatting, or you have a weak side butt muscle, is what we're going to call it for our purposes, your knees could cave in. So by spreading the floor, driving up through my heels, spreading the floor with my feet as I stand up, you're going to prevent your knees from caving in. You're going to activate a hell of a lot of musculature, and you're going to get much better results. So putting all of those coaching points together, big breath in, break at the knees and hips on the way down, drive up through the heels, spread the floor, breath out. Breath in, break at the knees and hips at the same time, drive up through the heels, spread the floor. Drop down, drive up, spread the heels, drop down, drive up through your heels, spread the floor. We'll do one more, pay attention to the side view. Boom. Now, what will happen too is if you start to not be sitting back, for lack of a better word, with pressure on your heels, you can start to see, go on the balls of my feet, and I'll see how my knees are starting to drift forward, and that's what we don't want. That's when then your hips are going to start to drive up, and you're going to do something like that. Now that's kind of like a good morning, which is not the exercise we want to do. We do not want to be doing that. So the weight is on the heels of my feet. The weight's on the balls of my feet. If you watch on the side view, my knees start to go too far over my toes, and that's what we don't want. And then that's when you get in trouble, when your low back takes a beating trying to get the bar up. So I'm going to rack it, and we're going to do that first warm up and working sets together. So I'm going to take 2 deep breaths, recenter myself, which I highly recommend you do before every major lift. Okay, come up to the bar. I do it just wider than a normal bench press grip. We're going to get underneath it, retract our shoulder blades, kind of do the little shimmy, lock the bar into place on my traps. I'm going to stand up. Now you're going to take your step backwards. I'm going to step forward. You're going to take your step backwards inside the squat rack. Now squeeze oranges in your armpits. Now see how your lats, your back tightens up. I want you to be squeezing that the entire time. Keep that tension. We're going to take a breath in. Gulp of air. Break at the knees and hips. Drop down. Drive up. Spread through the floor. And spread through your heels. We're going to try that again. Big gulp in. Break at the knees and the hips. Drive up through the heels. Spread the floor. Breath out. Big breath in. Break at the knees and the hips. Stay on those heels. Drive up through the heels. Spread the floor. Big breath in. Drop down the knees and hips. Drive up. Spread. Good. Breath in. Drop down. Drive up. Spread. Good. Don't let your hips come up first. Keep squeezing those oranges in the armpit. Drive up through your heels. Spread the floor. Big drop in. Drop down. Drive up. Spread the floor. 3 more, family. Big breath in. Drop at the knees and the hips. Drive up through your heels, spread the floor. 2 more. Don't let the butt come up quick. Breath in. Drive up, spread. Last one. Big breath in. Drop down. Break the knees and hips. Drive up through your heels, spread the floor. Boom. Carefully, carefully rack the weight. And that, family, is how you do barbell back squats, 1 rep at a time.